this thing on? Because it's getting ready to be on.
All right, welcome to Bell Ringer. My name is Greg. Your guest name is Erie County Executive Mark Polencars. We're super excited that he could come and sit down with us. You may have recently seen that we were at SWS Warning Lights with the county executive welcoming that company to the region. They just expanded from Canada, and Canadian business expansion is what we're talking about on this episode. Why companies do it, why Buffalo Niagara is attractive. So thank you to the county executive for his time. I hope you guys enjoy the episode and listen to the end for some of the fun Blizzard Round questions. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right. Thank you very much for coming in today. I appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure, Greg.
So I wanted to start with a few numbers. From 2012 until today, we've attracted 45 Canadian expansions to the U.S., creating 1,030 jobs and $146 million in investment. Why do you think we've been so successful in attracting these companies to Western New York?
Well, for too long, we looked for silver bullet type of economic development projects from outside of our area, like California, Texas, and Florida, when we really should be looking at our own region. And what Invest Buffalo Niagara has been doing, and what my administration has done as well, is realize that we can grow our region regionally. We don't necessarily think of Southern Ontario as part of the Buffalo Niagara region. From a standpoint of governmentally, it isn't. It's a separate country, but as a region, geographically, economically, it is certainly part of what we are here in Western New York. Is also Southern Ontario. So we should have been focusing for a long time, at least on the government end, of trying to grow our business would be considered regionally. We always support local businesses that want to expand. Well, why would we not want to support a business from St. Catharines or Hamilton or Niagara Falls, Ontario that wanted to expand into the United States in Erie County or Western New York? So I think there's been a greater sense of urgency by at least government through Erie County, working with Invest Buffalo Niagara as well as our other partners to realize we're not going to get a company that moved out of this area 30 years ago to Texas or Florida to come back. But we will get companies from Canada that are looking to expand their operations into the United States come to Buffalo, Erie County, and Western New York before they go to Texas and Florida, because we have so much in common.
And why, when you first took office, did you put such a priority on this? Is it, how does it make us unique from some of those other locations?
Well, when I practiced law for the firm of Kavanaugh Cook, we had an office in Toronto. And that office was dedicated to assisting Canadian businesses that were interested in moving into the United States. So the lawyers from Kavanaugh Cook would talk with the Canadian clients, not about Canadian law, Ontario law, but about U.S. law, what it was necessary for them if they wanted to create operations in the United States. So I saw that, and I saw how successful it was, but our clients weren't interested in Buffalo and Western New York, though we could compete with the other areas that they were considering. And one of the reasons I think that they weren't thinking about Western New York is because, from a government standpoint, no one was talking to them. There was nobody from Western New York, governmental, that was doing it. The state hadn't done it. The state cut its funding for Canadian business outreach. And other than Invest Buffalo Niagara, no one was doing it. And so I thought it was very important that, and we could be successful if we really took a lead role to grow Canadian business in our region by focusing on it from county government. Erie County government is the economic development arm for our region. The Erie County Industrial Development Agency is in some ways a part of Erie County government. I make many appointments to the board. I sit on the board. We assist companies in growing. So why would we not use the economic development tools that are in front of us that to advance not just our local companies but bring new ones in here? And we knew we could do it if we just went out there and made the effort.
So some of those legal considerations that you just talked about when you were practicing law create challenges for Canadian companies that want to come across the border, and that's a lot of what we do is help people manage that process. So, while we think Canada is just our backyard, it's a quick trip and we can go almost anytime we want, there are somewhat unique challenges. What support networks do you think exist here that are so helpful to those companies?
Well, one of the things we have here that they don't have in other areas of the country are dedicated legal teams, dedicated accounting teams that are used to dealing with Canadian companies and the issues that they have in the United States. So if somebody wanted to go to, let's say, Columbus, Ohio, you're not going to find the number of law firms or accounting firms or financial firms that are experienced with a Canadian company wanting to set up shop in the United States. But here you do, and as I noted with my old law firm, we actually had an office in Toronto. Many local law firms have offices in Toronto just for that reason. When a company in Canada is thinking about expanding into the United States, let's say creating a subsidiary, they need to know more than just how do I create the company. They need to know what are the rules with regards to immigration. How long can one of my Canadian employees go across the United States before they're taxed at different reasons or need a green card? So it's very important that when a Canadian company is thinking about moving into the United States, they can talk to experts in the field who can answer their questions. And I can guarantee you, compared to other mid-sized communities across the United States, we have more experts on what Canadian companies need to do coming into the United States than a lot of those other areas do in the country.
So you listed some of those concerns: immigration, tax, some other legal implications. What have you done to try and help streamline that process to make it as easy as possible for these companies to make what is for them a pretty big decision?
Well, the one thing that we've done in general, not just with Canadian companies, but in companies in general, is to create a one-stop shop for economic development at 95 Perry Street in Buffalo. So now the Erie County Industrial Development Agency, the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, the New York State Economic Development Agency, the Power Authority, they're all in one building. So before, where you had to talk to different parties, go to different buildings to figure out if they were qualified for assistance, what are the rules, a company can go into one location and talk to all the major players in one spot. So that makes it a lot easier for companies because they don't want to waste their time going to 3 different buildings and talking to 3 different people. They want to go to one meeting where they can get all the answers at that one meeting, and that's what they can do now. In addition, I think it's very important for the Canadian companies to understand we get their issues that they often have. A lot of it's with regards to transportation. We know about the issues that can happen with regards to truck and rail transportation between the United States and Canada. We're one of the busiest locations for transportation between the two countries, and we understand that we can help them deal with the issues that they often have, such as a one-day delay in delivery of goods from the United States to Canada and vice versa can have a tremendous adverse impact on a company. So we understand those issues and we know how to help them get around it.
What type of companies and industries do you think are poised to make that leap from Canada to Buffalo Niagara?
Well, one of the advantages that we always had was our location in Buffalo. That's why after the Erie Canal came here, we were a central transportation and logistics point for our country, and we still are. There's still a tremendous amount of goods that travel through Buffalo to points west and east. And if you're talking about Canada, a good portion of the goods from Canada to the United States pass through our truck or rail traffic. So we have the ability for warehousing, different types of logistics, being able to take, let's say a good is produced in Hamilton, Ontario, or let's say Oshawa, Ontario. They have a warehouse down in Buffalo. Well, it's easy for them to get that across the bridge and then transport it to anywhere in the United States. We have some very, very good areas as well in regards to advanced manufacturing and high technology that we're just really good at locally, have a great workforce. And I think that's an example of Canadian companies that do advanced manufacturing. If they're looking for a region to invest in the United States, we can compete with anyone else. And then, of course, the life sciences are really growing. Our Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus is growing here. And I do know that there are foreign corporations that are investing in our region because they want to be here at our Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus to take advantage of the life science research that's going on here. So those are some of the key ones. We still have tremendous traffic between the United States and Canada in our regions for the older type of manufacturing. There's many goods that are produced in the United States, parts for automobiles that then go up to Canada to be assembled. There's Canadian raw materials that come across the border to the United States to be produced here. So we still are a key location when it comes to the automobile industry, and I think that will continue and hopefully will grow as the parties realize that it makes more sense if you have an assembly plant in Oakville, Ontario, that you have a parts manufacturer in the Buffalo area rather than have it down in Georgia. So that's why Ford has the stamping plant here and then sends its materials up to Oakville to be assembled. And we want to continue to grow that through other parts manufacturers.
So what do you hear from these Canadian businesses that that have expanded here. I know just a few weeks ago we were at SWS Warning Lights together, and they talked a little bit about how big the American market is for their product compared to Canada just by sheer population. What do you hear on the ground when you're doing some of these tours?
I think when I've gone up to Canada, and I have before, to talk to prospective businesses, their general answer is, what can you do better than other areas? And right off the bat, we can list not only the closeness of the regions and how it's very easy for a Canadian business owner to travel to Buffalo, Western New York, go through their subsidiary, and then go back and be at home for dinner. So that's a nicest aspect that we have. But one of the features that we can offer, that I said a lot of other areas can, is that technical knowledge. Because when you go across and set up shop in the United States as a foreign company, if you do it wrong, it can have tremendous ramifications to the point of basically putting you out of business in a very short period of time. So it's important that we have that technical experience that a lot of other areas don't. So if there's a question that comes in that's related to government, to Invest Buffalo Niagara, they can contact my office and we know what to do. If there's a question with regards to legal issues, they can contact many law firms in the area, attorneys that specialize in this practice, to help that client out. So I think that's a huge advantage that a lot of businesses are looking for. They're often leery of taking that jump because even though we treat Canadians as our friends and neighbors, they are a separate country. Right. And if you're a business owner, there's all sets of new laws, all sets of new rules, everything that you need to know that none of them know. So they want to be able to feel comfortable that if they are going to move into the United States, that they've done it correctly. And I can guarantee you that that will happen if they come to our region and talk to our office in Buffalo Niagara and the many experts in this field that we have here, because this is not something new to us. We know how to do this and do it right, and as a result, Canadian businesses are prospering here.
Right. And you were just up at the Hamilton Steel Summit as well. What did you learn up there, and what did you hear from folks?
Well, what was a little sad was that Canadians were looking down on the United States in general because of decisions that were made in Washington, D.C. And what I reminded them is not everybody in the United States agrees with the decisions that are made in Washington, and we in Western New York understand the strong relationship we have with our friends in Southern Ontario. So regardless of what decisions are being made there, you can still count on us to work together to grow our mutual economies. And that's what this is about. We want to see Canadian companies thrive. We're not looking to steal Canadian companies and move them to the United States. We're just saying, if you're thinking about entering the U.S. market, you should come to Buffalo Niagara. You shouldn't be thinking about Oklahoma. You shouldn't be thinking about Arizona. We have so many advantages that those areas don't have, and we have the expertise. We will make them successful. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen the great cross-border traffic and work succeed. And when I was up in Hamilton, I just had to reaffirm that message that, yes, there are issues we have to deal with regards to the steel tariffs, which still have not been resolved, even though the new agreement has been entered into. And we do need to resolve those because it has a negative impact on both sides of the border. But regardless of what happens, they can still trust the people in Western New York and in my office in Erie County to work together on these issues, not fight.
Right. So you actually stole or started to allude to my next question. Why the distinction between expansion and relocation?
Well, first off, it's very important that we realize that it's very, very rare that a company will just pick up and move somewhere else. It sometimes happens. It used to happen a lot in the Buffalo area. It doesn't happen that much anymore. And from the standpoint of losing companies locally or having companies move in. And so what we need to understand is we're not looking to steal Canadian companies and move them to the United States. We want them to be as successful as they can be in their base, which is Canada. But what we think is appropriate is if they are thinking about expanding into the United States, there's no location better situated for their growth and to see them succeed than the Buffalo Niagara region. And we in Erie County know that if they make the consideration, we can compete with anywhere else in the United States with regards to the subsidies, the benefits, the tax incentives that can be offered, and we will provide them the technical knowledge that they will not get anywhere else. So if they can get the same bang for their buck as anywhere else in the United States, why would you go anywhere else when you have the technical knowledge here? And oh, by the way, we share a mutual border. Canadians come down and shop in our malls. They go to our Bills and Sabres games. They like to ski at our resorts. Americans like to go up to Southern Ontario, Toronto, Niagara-on-the-Lake. We have so much in common. We might as well build on that relationship, and we can do it in such a way that we're both mutually productive as a result of it.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your support in our organization and prioritizing this effort. We just have a few last blizzard round questions for you.
Uh-oh.
And then we'll end. If you were a flavor of ice cream, what would you be?
Oh, that's a tough one. I like so many different ice creams, though I do like creamsicle.
Okay. Book or TV show that you'd recommend?
I can't say I watch a whole lot of TV anymore. I did read a very long but interesting book on the biography of former Governor Nelson Rockefeller. If you want to learn how government in New York State worked in the late 50s, 1960s, and 70s, I would certainly recommend it. It was by Richard Norton Smith, and it reveals so much about government in New York, including why we're left with some of the things we have to deal with today.
Right. Text or phone call?
Depends on the person.
Bills or Sabres?
I'm a fan of both. And, oh, by the way, the county owns both facilities, so I'm an equal fan.
And they both won this weekend.
Yes.
Hiking or skiing?
I'm much more of a cross-country skier than a downhill skier, and we got some great cross-country locations. So, but I like hiking. So in the fall and summer, I'll hike. In the winter, I'll cross-country ski.
And last question, chicken wings, drumstick or flat?
Drumstick.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, County Executive.
You're welcome, Greg.
Bellringer is a podcast by Invest Buffalo Niagara, the region's privately funded, nonprofit marketing and economic development organization. Please rate this podcast, follow our social media channels, and read our blog at buffaloniagara.org for the best of Buffalo Niagara. Come grow your business with us.